Hey everybody, this video is from a trip that I did in 2010 with my friend Bob when we spent 5 days together kind of doing some pretty awesome stuff in the Absaroka range. Our first objective was Dead Indian Peak, which is kind of on the southern end of Sunlight Basin, and it's this beautiful point, this real jagged looking point that you can see kind of from Dead Indian Pass to the kind of northeast of the peak. It's on the main crest of the north part of the Absaroka range that runs parallel to the North Fork of the Shoshone River. And this peak had caught my eye for a while, and read a lot of the research or the route descriptions in Tom Triano's book, and was like super excited to give it a try. And it was really a rugged bushwhack to get up there. We followed Gravel Bar Creek and then kind of left on a spur that looked promising. It's a lot of vertical off trail with a full pack. And we got to camp and it was fairly late, and we kind of, Bob thought especially about trying to bag the summit that night, and we were like, nah, we'll do it in the morning. That night a storm rolled in and we woke up to snow and wind, clouds. You couldn't even see the peak from camp. So we kind of just thought about it, and so we headed towards the peak, and it was super cold. The wind was just brutal. And part of my reason for going to summits is to see the awesome views. I figured even if we did tag the summit, which is supposed to be a really fun class 3 scramble, I figured, why even bother? And so we kind of turned back, sat in our tents for a few hours, hoping the weather would clear. And by around noon, I started getting water inside my tent. I was, at that time, didn't have really good equipment, and so I had a cheap Walmart tent that was leaking like a sieve. And I kind of was like, Bob, we probably need to go. And he was like, why? I was like, well, I'm flooding in here. And he was like, oh crap. Well, so we left, went back, spent the night in Powell, regrouped, and then we went down to Kirwin early the next morning, and had an awesome 3 days down there. Just tons of miles, tons of vertical. Spent a lot of time above 12,000 feet, just climbing some of the most beautiful peaks that are around that area. Favorite day was definitely day 2. We headed west of Kirwin and climbed Dunrud and Dollar peaks, and Dollar is very rarely climbed. In fact, I know of no one else that has climbed it. I'm assuming other people have, but both Bob and I have done research, and we can't find anybody else that's climbed it. It's just a really out of the way, fun mountain. That time of year was perfect because it was that wonderful time when the grass in the Absarokas is all green, and there's just these awesome fingers of snow everywhere, and you just, everywhere you look is a beautiful view. Just couldn't believe it. It was amazing. The third day we did a quick morning where we summited Cascade and Spar Mountain, and it was really short but still really fun. And it was a really good trip because it got me kind of prepared for my Gannett Peak trip, which was a couple weeks later. I spent a lot of time above altitude. I was in really good shape, and that made Gannett Peak a lot easier because I had spent a lot of time running around really kind of way up high. So the Absaroka range is a really bear heavy range. We didn't see any bears on that trip, which was really kind of amazing. We have seen our fair share of bears in the wilderness, including one day on Sunlight Peak where we saw 20 in one morning, and it was, we were really fortunate not to run into any, but it was just a really cool hike. So the music for this one is kind of an interesting piece. I wrote this entire thing. I was, at the time, had access to a recording studio, and I kind of was playing around with the little music box theme that you hear in the beginning, which is kind of fun. It's in 7/8 time, and I'm always obsessed with that time signature, and I kind of layered on my own electric guitar and electric bass along with a lot of synth orchestra, and then the drum set is actually off of a synth keyboard, so it's not a great sounding drum set, but I did what I could, and so it put all of it together. My oldest daughter was a baby still at the time, or fairly young, and she loved listening to this, and so that's why it's the song is named for her. So that's the soundtrack for this one. It's an awesome area, awesome range. It's a lot. Since I did this climb back 10 years ago, it seems to me like bears have gotten more and more populous. Every time I've gone to the Absarokas in the last few years, I seem to see them or find a lot of signs of them. And it's kind of, since I do a lot of hiking on my own or with a single partner, it's turned me off a little bit from the range, because I prefer not to run into those by myself. So that's why I've done a lot more in the Wind Rivers lately. But at this time, I didn't see as many bears, and it was a fun trip. So thank you, Bob, for going with me on that trip. Enjoy.